Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Winnetka Village Council regular meeting for May 18th, 2021. I would like to call the meeting to order and ask everyone to mute your cell phones or other electronic devices, and also mute your microphone when you're not speaking to improve the sound quality of the meeting. I will now ask Village Manager Rob Bahan to do a roll call.
Thank you. Trustee Mancini?
Here.
Trustee Kripe?
Here.
Trustee Swart?
Here.
Trustee Dearborn? Here. Trustee Apatow?
Here.
Trustee Lampier?
Yep.
President Rins?
Present. Thank you. Next order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'll do the honors this evening. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty
and justice for all.
Thanks, everyone. All right, Rob, we'll go ahead and do a quorum check.
Thank you. June is upon us, the 1st, the 8th, and the 15th. Are there any conflicts for those meetings? Okay. Well, let us know if there is. So far, so good. Chris, I think we are good there.
Okay. Next order of business is public comment. This is the time of the evening when people who are in attendance can address the council on any item that is not on the agenda. So if you're here for Louise or the pool dome, please hold your comments to later, but this is for items that are not on the agenda. Kristen, can you go ahead and poll the various rooms to see if anybody wishes to speak to council this evening?
Yes, President Rents, for the record, there were no public comments submitted in advance of the meeting via email tonight. We do have members in the audience in council chambers as well as in the Zoom room. So I'd like to recognize the members in the Zoom room first, and then we'll recognize council chambers. So at this time, if you're in the Zoom platform participating and you would like to make a comment, if you could please raise your hand using the Zoom platform. We have one hand raised. Mickey, I'm going to allow you to talk and ask you to unmute.
Okay, thank you, Kristen. I actually did write my comments and sent them in today, so that's the second time. So Kristen, I'll try to reach you tomorrow or the next day to understand why that hasn't gone through now a second time. But very
so Mickey,
quickly,
if I could respond to that, please. You did receive an email today, but it was a question and it wasn't marked as public comment. So it wasn't clear that it was a public comment. So in future, if you would like to have a comment shared, if you would please indicate that in your email for the online instructions, that would really help me understand that it's a comment.
okay, wonderful. Thank you, Kristen. So I'll try to make a question into a comment. At last week's caucus meeting, there was someone who raised a question about the status of bike paths. And so I got caught totally unprepared for that question and punted, and as someone said, I BS'd my way out of it. But I would like to know, the park district thinks they've at least provided a map. So are there things you need from us now? What is the status of bike paths? I assume it's been put in somewhat on the back burner. And what are the next steps to getting that from a dream to reality? Thanks.
Rob Bahan, any thoughts?
So the park district has developed a bike plan. That bike plan, there were certain aspects that were reviewed. My sense is that bike plan probably needs a refresh by the park district. as one step, but I know that pedestrian and bike access was a matter that was going to be part of the comprehensive plan. And obviously the plan has been delayed due to COVID. We are looking at a restart this year, so that matter can be brought up again with probably a heightened emphasis on the Green Bay Trail.
But
So if there's anything there I missed, certainly let me know.
But the comp plan, I would, that's why I asked you to respond, Rob, because I couldn't remember, but I thought that we had included a study of all those sort of things in the comp plan, so we could
Right.
a larger framework to work with. So
Correct.
I think that's how it's going to happen, Mickey.
Okay. Yeah, I just, given we got taken on a hop on that question, I just thought I'd refresh it for council and just to make sure it, it stays live. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Is there anyone else in the Zoom platform that would like to make a comment on an item not on the agenda? If you could raise your hand. Okay, at this time, we'll recognize the members of the audience in the council chambers.
I think you're on now.
Sorry, we're just.
Oh, no, it's all good.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yours? Okay, all right, he's up here.
Hi, my name is Mike Finnerty. I'm here with Al Steppen tonight. And we came to talk a little bit about the outdoor seating policy for COVID, the emergency policy. My wife and I own the building that Minos is located in, and we're partners in the business. We've been Winnetka residents for 23 years, know several of you. And I just want to give a little background. We kind of went into Minos venture for civic reasons. We have real estate as part of our portfolio, as many people do, and it was all over the country. And we found that, we had empty commercial spaces here. So, and frankly, it was just causing a lot of families, because of the lack of services, to choose other towns to move to. So, and frankly, we thought it was depressing our home values and quality of life. And it also fit kind of perfectly with Chris's belief that in the new era, we're going to have to be competing for families coming up from the city. We can't just sit on our laurels and say, well, we're Winnetka or we're the North Shore, and that's why. People are moving to where there are services. And I don't want to speak for Al, but I know that community was a big reason that he went into Fred's Garage, and he has a similar position in terms of owning the building and investment in the business. But as a result, we really don't see each other as competitors. In fact, we shared notes along the way. We've passed staff back and forth. Al even represented us when we bought the Minos building. And when we decided not to proceed with the Savoci Glass building, Al found another restaurant located right around the corner of him to go in there. Many people would have thought that was bad for competition, but I think we thought competition is fine, and we're community residents and we really like French food. So it all kind of worked out for us. And in working with the village over the past few years, I really can't say enough good things. Staff has been incredible. Some anecdotes I had were we kind of misjumped our occupancy permit, totally our fault. And when we brought it up, David Schoen said, it's water under the bridge, and let's see if we can get you open on your schedule. I mean, that's the attitude that we found here, and it's been remarkable. When buying the Savoci Glass building, we needed to know something about the transformer before we put our bid in. And the person in charge of doing that on David's team actually had left for the day, but went back to the office to look it up so we could get our bid in the next day. So that's the kind of support that we've seen. And even when we sold the Savoci Glass building, business development was very helpful in working with the new buyers to get them in. So, and it's been collaborative. The village asked us to take out our curb cuts. Chris and his team came up with this very innovative way that we could do that and have the village do it, so we would avoid all the permitting and we just pay the village. So I think I can go on, and I've heard the same thing from other business owners. And during COVID, the village really mobilized. I don't think we lost a single restaurant to COVID. We lost a couple for other reasons, but I don't think we lost any of COVID. And I don't know if you're reading the numbers, but across the country, somewhere between 30 and 40% of restaurants are going out. So it's really quite remarkable. And when we needed more seating for COVID, we got our permit for extending our patio in 1 day. Chris and David got together, we got it, we got up and going. So again, you know, it cost money, but we got it done. And again, I can't say enough things. But I do have to respectfully submit that our outdoor seating policy might need to be looked at. Our COVID, I guess it's the COVID emergency. During COVID, it made perfect sense to allow restaurants that lost indoor seating to use public property for outdoor seating. We couldn't take advantage of it, but if it kept some of those restaurants in business, that was just fine. It's our understanding that this was a COVID emergency measure, and COVID's effectively over. We're back to 75% capacity, and the Illinois Restaurant Association is hopeful that soon vaccinated people will be excluded from capacity limitations. So that would be a huge boom for us. I mean, we could get our labor in order, that would be great. But the issues that I have personally, and I'll let Al speak for himself, is, and I just feel the need to get it off my chest, and you all can do with it whatever you want or not. The current policy overwhelmingly benefits one restaurant at the cost of the rest of us. It's not just a matter of using community land, it's where that business comes out of. I think under the current program, one restaurant is given over 100 seats on the public way, which is more than all the other restaurants in the village combined. Keep in mind that that restaurant only had 50 seats. So we've effectively tripled the size of that restaurant for no additional cost, no taxes, no nothing. And not to complain to things that you can't do anything about, but our taxes went from $36,000 to $68,000 this year. And a lot of that is because of our outdoor space. To give you an idea of the financial implications of this, if you have 100 seats for 5 months and you're at 50% occupancy, which is conservative, and a $60 check size per person, which is also conservative, that's $400,000 in revenue going to that one restaurant. How much of that's coming out of the rest of the restaurants? And that's the thing I don't think anybody is looking at or thinking about. So it's, as I said earlier, it's not really that the village is doing a good thing. It is doing a good thing, but it's coming out of the rest of us. Talk to other restaurateurs, they feel the same way. Some of them don't want to come here because they have other things in front of the village. But I just feel like it had to be said. So what I'm suggesting, I'm here because we were told by our contact at the village that the outdoor seating policy was reviewed by the trustees. And I had to get it off my chest, so I beg your indulgence. I believe outdoor seating on public property should be limited to the inside space actually lost. It shouldn't be a windfall for any one restaurant at the cost of the others in the community. And I'd also like to suggest that we would love to be there to be more of a dialogue with the village in coming up with the policies. I feel like they're very anxious to do everything they can for us, but sometimes we'd love to have a dialogue over it before it happens. And that may exist through the chamber, and that may just be off kilter because of COVID, I don't know. But that's really what I have to say. So again, wanted to get it out there. I really respect everything that you do as volunteers, and I just trust that you'll do what's right with it. And Al, did you have anything?
Yeah, I'll say something.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Good evening. Mike and I have been talking for a while. My name is Al Steppen. I own 574 Green Bay Road, which is otherwise known as Fred's Garage. And there are COVID winners and COVID losers. And that's just a reality of our real estate business and our businesses. And it's a terrible shame to say that, but we're all fighting this pandemic. And although this pandemic is our first pandemic, it's not our second, it's not our first year fighting this pandemic. We've all had to adapt and overcome. You're having your meetings as such. So we appreciate everything it's been doing to keep this business moving forward in the business of the village. But there are opportunities that maybe Mike and I aren't going to be able to seize because we didn't ask for that much forgiveness or ask for much additional things. If I came in here and asked for a 7,500 square foot taxable reduction because my patio is only, my patio is bigger than my building, I don't think the village will be too happy about it. So why should I be taxed on my patio when other people aren't being taxed on the patios provided them by the village? So Mike's got, you know, a 10,000 square foot lot and a 4,000 square foot building. He's being taxed on 6,000 feet or 10,000, I mean, roughly. So if you're going to be giving incentives and breaks for everybody, then why don't you give us a break in our taxes? And let's give us a tax freeze to equate the table so we can conduct business. Because we're paying taxes on our square footage of the lot, not the building size. And effectively, you're giving a guy who's up for, and I love him, by the way, and I love his food. I love Toko, I love Bruno, he's a great guy. But you're basically giving him a free patio, which we're being taxed on. And I think that's dangerous waters to go in. Because now you've got 2 business people who are upset about it. And there's about 5 more who are afraid to be in front of this village right now because, as Mike said, they're under permitting and they don't want any retribution, you know, so retaliation for coming up here and speaking. But I know because I've done a lot of these business deals here. I mean, I'm a restaurant broker. I did the nude one for O'Donnell. You know, I've been here. I know these different guys. So I think you just need to level the playing field here. And I'm not here to complain or moan. I'm here to support Mike. He feels it strongly. We're all competing for the same customers. My price point is different. I don't see myself as a direct competitor. Our Fred's experience that we've delivered this community is different than the Minos. It's going to be different than everybody else's. 501. It's going to be different than Sushi. But I think making concessions for one operator is problematic. And I think it may cause issues in the long term. That's all I got to say. Thanks for coming out.
Thanks a lot, Al. Just know that the village does not decide what is taxable and what is not taxable. As you know, the county assessor is the one that goes out and observes the property and makes those determinations. I didn't realize that they were making a distinction on that. Outdoor dining is some in between taxable property. So that's an interesting point.
For sure. I pay
we'll
tax
take-
on the building, not in the lot size. You know, so if I've got a 10,000 square foot lot, I'm paying tax on 10,000 feet.
Right. And of course, as a tenant, he's just paying it through his rent, whatever it happens to be.
But that's
So,
all, I mean, that Kaufman doesn't own that building, that street.
Yep, I understand.
And
We'll take this under advisement, guys. Mike, I know this has been a burr in your saddle for a while now, so I think it's worthwhile to have a conversation. But I want to make sure that we as electeds are well armed with an understanding of all the issues surrounding this. And Rob, I don't know what the plans are relative to rolling back some of the COVID opening issues that we created to make things easier for restaurants, and when that stuff falls off or how it does or doesn't.
Well, we are hosting Lollapalooza with 300,000 people in July. I mean, COVID is over. I mean, I hate to say it like that. I mean, that's 300,000 people on Grand Field, Grant Park.
Yeah, I'll probably see you there, Al.
We'll be there.
Yep.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Rob?
We're in the bridge phase, and under the governor's order, it's still not over. So phase 5 will mean it's over. So the basis for using public property for outdoor dining was a way to keep the businesses afloat. We're in transition. We're not saying it's perfect, but it has been good in order to support all of them. We've expanded outdoor dining permits for a number of restaurants, 501 local. I know that Avli got extra seating off of Chestnut, and we worked very hard with each of the restaurants during the height of that pandemic to make sure that we could maximize their businesses as much as possible outside. So now we're in transition, and the basis for them existing there now is the governor's executive order regarding the state of the pandemic, as well as the emergency declaration that was issued here. So both of those items taken together is the basis for that space being used. I would not see this as being a perpetual thing, but we'll have to decide when it would be wound down. I would not anticipate it being a perpetual use of that space, but it would be a policy decision for the council to come back and review, and we're happy to provide more data and context on it.
Yeah, let's dig in a little before we have that conversation. I want to make sure we're well armed with all the information on that.
Okay.
All right, Kristen, anybody else?
Hey, Chris, can I just say one thing here? The one comment that was made there that I just hope, and I can't speak for everyone here, but I think I probably can, that I think that kind of input is really valued by this group. And for anyone who would not want to be part of a group providing input like that because they fear retribution, I think that's unfounded. I think we would value it. There would never, ever be any retribution for someone coming forward with a good idea or even any kind of idea. So for those that might feel that way, they shouldn't feel that way, because I find that to be really a good conversation right there. That's really interesting. So I would only make that point.
Thanks, Bob. Kristen?
It appears Council Chambers has raised their hand again. So let's check and see if there's someone else in Council Chambers. Do please unmute in Council Chambers.
Is that better?
We can hear you.
Okay. So the one thing with retribution is, and I don't think anybody does it. Look, I think you've got great people here. But I do note that we were told that the one thing we did get were 2 parking spaces to put a pod on, because we can't have all our tables out. We were told that since COVID was winding down, we needed to get those off of the 2 parking spaces. So all we get are 2 parking spaces, and we've been told to get off them. So I'm not saying it's retribution. It could well be coincidence, but it makes you uneasy.
Yeah.
Who's speaking?
Mike Finnerty.
Oh, hi, Mike. Okay.
And for the council, and thank you, Mike, for the comment. The context of that is that there were other businesses in the area that had complained about it, and we viewed it as short term. And we're hoping that there'll be full reopen so that you can stack up and repopulate your space with the furniture that you're storing. But we're, as I believe David Schoen or Brian Norcus had conveyed to you, we're playing this out for as long as possible, so that
we can
you
put
have
it
the
in
space. You have the space there until it begins to open up.
And we can put it in the garage too. We offered to put it in the garage next to
I understand.
Pizza Shop's pizza oven, and we're told we couldn't do that. So anyway, again, remember the first part of the conversation, not the last part, because it's been wonderful. But these are just things to get out there. Thank you.
We hear you. Kristen?
There are no additional hands raised. So that concludes the public comment on non-agenda items.
Okay, thank you very much. And thanks to everybody for joining in and sharing your thoughts. We'll move to item number 5, which are reports. Does any trustee have a report this evening? Just raise your hand and let me know. Seeing none. Village Attorney, how about you? Do you have a report this evening?
I do not, thank you.
Okay. Village Manager, do you have a report this evening?
Nothing further. Thank you.
Okay. And the Village President, the only thing, I have a report, but it's not about Village, it's about the parks. The grand opening, or the ribbon cutting for the Lloyd Street beach improvements is next Tuesday. And so I'm just letting people know that that will be reopening to the public shortly after that ribbon cutting, I hope. I don't see Mickey's hand going up again, so I think I'm on the right track here. But get out there and check it out. The Park District has done a lot of hard work, and you know, this is just the first step of many in the lakefront transformation plan. And you know, when you have the chance, get out there and enjoy the wonderful amenities that the Park District provides this community. Moving forward, we'll get to item number 6, which is resolution number R53, 2021. This is a proclamation honoring Louise Holland. Although this resolution commends Louise Holland for her work on the Landmark Preservation Commission, Louise has been active in village affairs since the early 1990s, serving as a village trustee from 92 to 96, before being elected president in 1997 and serving 4 more years on the village council. Since 2006, Louise has been sharing her passion for historic preservation by serving on the Landmark Preservation Commission, sitting as a chair for most of those years. Through her outreach efforts, the public has become aware of the cultural significance of historic structures. Winnetka's sense of place and connection to the past owe much to Louise's devotion to Winnetka's history and its historic homes and buildings. Tonight, we honor her many contributions to historic preservation in Winnetka and wish her well in her retirement from public life. And actually, I don't believe Louise will ever retire, so. All right, so now I'll go ahead and read the resolution. Resolution number R53, 2021. Whereas Louise Holland faithfully served the village of Winnetka on the Landmark Preservation Commission for 15 years, from 2006 to 2021. And whereas during her 15-year tenure on the Landmark Preservation Commission, she served as chairperson from 2008 through 2021. Whereas while serving on the Landmark Preservation Commission, she represented the commission and its historic preservation interest as the commission's liaison to the Plan Commission. And whereas she was instrumental in the creation of the Village of Winnetka Landmark Preservation Ordinance. And whereas she identified buildings, properties, and structures that are of historic, cultural, or architectural significance. And whereas she tirelessly informed and educated the village residents about the historic, cultural, and architectural heritage of the village of Winnetka through such activities as trolley tours of historic homes in the community and the annual Preservation Awards program. And whereas she passionately advocated for preservation, renovation, rehabilitation, and reuse of historic and architecturally significant homes. And whereas she relentlessly guarded the integrity, history, and character of the village of Winnetka. Whereas Louise Holland enhanced the deliberations of the commission by listening attentively to public input, thoroughly considering the reports and studies prepared by applicants, consultants, and village staff, committing to a transparent public process, and prudently deliberating on all matters of public policy brought before the Landmark Preservation Commission. And whereas she helped to further the village's goal of preserving historically and architecturally significant homes by recommending incentives for renovating such properties and by recommending a deterrent to demolition in the form of a longer demolition delay period. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the village council on behalf of the village of Winnetka and village staff commends Louise Holland for her unselfish dedication and donation of time, effort, and expertise to serving our community and extends to her sincere appreciation for her contributions to this village. And be it further resolved that Louise Holland transmits this village greater and more beautiful than it was transmitted to her. I will now open up for public comments. And I'd like to go to the audience first, Kristen, and we'll save the trustees for afterwards.
And the guest of honor is in the audience as well, President Rentz.
Hey, Louise.
Hope I'm, oh, now I'm off of Zoom.
We can hear
Where
you.
are you going? Okay. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Can you hear me? Good. Actually, Chris, I think it was 1982 when I first ventured into village affairs. I was appointed to the zoning board at that time, and that was a 5-year term. You know, what's 5 years? You know, I wrote this out because I sent my many thanks to the council for this thoughtful citation from the village. Serving Winnetka as chairperson of the Preservation Commission for 15 years has been a very fulfilling effort. Not only have we saved many historic homes from demolition, but working with the members of the commission has given me many friends dedicated to the architecture and history of our community. Nan Greeno preceded me for many years in this job, and it was her enthusiasm and knowledge that showed me the way. Again, thank you all. I will not be a stranger to the council chamber. You will see me as a very grateful resident and a very proud Winnetka. Thank you.
Thank you, Louise. That's wonderful.
And so next I'll recognize Jack Coladarchi. Jack, I'm asking you to unmute.
Thanks. I've known, I mean, my family's known the Hollands and their family for, I guess, forever, it seems. I was Liz's Latin tutor in 1978 or 79 or something like that. Poor Liz. I don't think she's ever gotten over it. And I luckily am following in Louise's footsteps on the Landmark Preservation Commission. And it's lucky for me because she made it look so easy, but it isn't. And she has such enormous knowledge about the area that all I can do is try to find people on the committee or the commission and say, listen, try to pick up some of the stuff that Louise talked about, because I have no idea. So Louise, it was a huge pleasure. Every time I've ever had any contact with you, I've felt lucky to learn from you and lucky to have such a nice, kind, intelligent person as a friend. So thank you for your service to the village. And I can only hope that I can do a portion of what you did. So thank you.
Or anyone else in the Zoom platform audience? I'm recognizing Laura Good. Laura, I'm asking you to unmute, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I just wanted to thank the Village Council for acknowledging Louise today with this proclamation. I'm a longtime member of the Landmark Preservation Commission, and I've worked closely with Louise for many, many years. And I have to say that when I think of Winnetka, I think of Louise. She has given tirelessly and selflessly to our village in so many ways, but I'll just speak to what she has done with the commission because that's how I know her best. She has spearheaded our commission with great wisdom, dedication, incredible leadership, diplomacy, grace, leadership, guiding us, teaching us, not only as a community, but as commissioners, and always nudging us to do better. And it was ironic that we've worked so hard to strengthening our ordinance for many, many years. It's ironic that it all happened slightly after Louise's retirement, but it all happened because of everything that Louise did over the course of all these years. And I'm just so grateful to the Village Council for, and this particular Village Council, each and every one of you, for really putting preservation on the map this year and investing in our community and supporting the arts, supporting architecture, supporting culture, and putting value behind all your decisions. I'm very, very appreciative to not only the council, but especially Louise. Thank you very, very much.
Thanks, Laura.
This time I'll recognize Susan.
Whoops, can you hear me? Hello? Am I audible?
For you.
Can you hear?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, I would like to second everything that Laura Good said. I too served on the Landmarks Commission, and it has been my privilege and joy to know Louise all these years. Before that at the Historical Society. And she is an asset to this community that we can't begin to appreciate. Her memory alone of everybody and everything that's happened, you agree, is unprecedented. We need to not waste a second of her memory and recollection about the events in this village. She is such a wonderful asset. I hope that we will find ways for her to participate going forward. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Susan.
Thanks, Susan.
That was pitiful, wasn't it?
No, it was perfect. Any other hands raised there, Kristen?
I see no additional hands raised, President Rentz, and I have confirmation that the council chambers is now empty. So there's no comment from council chambers, but there was one emailed comment that I would like to read at this time, please.
Sure.
Dear Louise, I am so pleased to see the resolution by the Village Council honoring you for your many years of dedicated service on the Landmark Preservation Committee. Congratulations on this well-deserved honor. I find words insufficient to describe your immeasurable and valuable contributions to our community. Your tireless, timeless work is seen throughout our village in its charm, beauty, and grace. One of your many notable endeavors, our Landmark Preservation Ordinance, will continue to enhance the historic, architectural, and cultural heritage of our unique village for years to come. With gratitude and appreciation, Jessica Tucker.
Thanks, Kristen. Okay, we can bring it back to council. Penny, go ahead.
Thanks, Chris, for letting me speak. Louise, what can I say? I moved to the village, I think in 1987, and immediately got recruited into the caucus and on village issues. And that's how I met Louise. And, you know, the landmark preservation concept came into being with Louise's help and through her recruiting an incredible resource, Susan Benjamin. And I got involved as voices in the village, got very angry, and there was a lot of heat and light generated on the issue without a lot of understanding. And Louise was amazing in terms of her tenacity in educating the village. And whoever said Louise knows a lot of people, no kidding. I think Louise knew well over 50% of the village of Winnetka. You know, as we got into the referendum and Louise was working on it, you'd go through the polling sheets and Louise knew like 3 people on every block. It was unbelievable. She has been an incredible resource for our village in terms of the vision that she has had for what preserving our architectural heritage can do as a community resource. And, you know, it's not just satisfying a few people who like architecture. It truly makes our village a more desirable place to live, and it benefits generations to come. So Louise has hung in there and outlasted all of the angry voices, and I can't tell you how thrilled I am that public sentiment has come around and that the ideas that Louise has been promoting for years and years and years has finally gained the strong public support that it deserves. And I, for one, am totally thrilled. So Louise, you're amazing, and it's been a pleasure to work with you all of these many years. So don't go away, and write a book. Please write a book.
Others. Go ahead, Rob A.
Okay. I remember when we moved here, moved back here, I should say, early 2000, and my wife got involved in village matters, and I overheard her talking about somebody in incredibly glowing terms. For a moment, I was hopeful it was me, but it was not. It was actually Louise. She just was so appreciative of somebody with her knowledge and her skills. I think if there's 3 things that kind of what I've come to know Louise as is just relentlessly pleasant, always deals in class, and has always been a very graceful person. And I will, you know, you'll be missed day to day, but your impact is immeasurable and long lasting. And thank you for all your time and effort.
Thanks, Rob. Go ahead, Bob.
And I won't repeat what Penny and Rob so eloquently said, because this is a person of amazing grace. And I've enjoyed knowing Louise now for many years. And obviously this focus tonight has been on preservation, though as Chris rightly noted at the outset, Louise's role in Winnetka goes well beyond preservation. And, you know, what she brings to all of us is an incredible depth of knowledge of Winnetka and institutional history of this town. That's not to say that things don't change and progress and so on and so forth, but if you talk to Louise about lakefront issues, you talk to her about stormwater issues, you talk to her about downtown development, whatever it is, she can cite chapter and verse of how we've gotten to where we are today. And that institutional history is invaluable. And I've corresponded with Louise over the, probably the past 2 decades on different issues. And she's just a font of knowledge. And as Rob said, she brings it to everyone with incredible grace and civility, which, is refreshing in today's world. So I have no doubt that Louise will continue to be a great resource for anyone and all of us who want to draw on that. And just looking back to where we've come from to where we are today, there's probably no one really that's made a bigger impact on Winnetka over the years than Louise Holland. So I think the proclamation is really nice. It's in my mind a little narrow relative to her contributions, but it's really nice, and I'm all for the preservation, as everyone knows. But I'm all about this lady and what she's done for this village over time. So Louise, you're the best. We'll see you around town, and as Penny said, you're going to stay involved. So thank you.
I'll follow Bob. Louise, thank you so much for all your service to the village. Laura was absolutely right. The recent enhancement to the landmark preservation ordinance would not have happened without the constant work over a long period of time that Louise has put into this. And Penny, I like what you said, she's outlasted the angry voices. And I think meaningful change always comes about from just hard work and persistence. And it's the angry voices come and go. And so I really appreciate Louise sticking with it, taking the time to educate trustees on issues. I've always found it incredibly important. I'm an old house person, but candidly, I'm also someone who's always concerned about any restrictions on what we tell our homeowners they can and can't do. But listening to Louise over the years, not only do you gain a better understanding of the importance of it, but that there's a workable model that she's created. It's kind of uniquely Winnetka. It's not a you can't do this or we're going to punish you kind of model. It's very collaborative, and having spent a year on the Landmark Preservation Committee as a liaison, seeing the actual work behind why that is an effective approach, where you're actually engaging directly with the homeowners, it's just a ton of work. And I mean, we should all just be really grateful for that. And it's so rare to see it. So thank you very much, Louise.
Well, Louise, I just wanted to thank you for everything that you've done. You and I go back a ways. It doesn't seem like so much anymore, but
Me and my dogs.
I noticed. I thought it was mine at first, but she's locked up in the kitchen. So thank you for everything you've done, Louise. I won't go any further than that. It's been my privilege to work with you since the early mid 2000s when I got brought into the old building review committee and had the pleasure of getting to know you in battle as we were beating on developers who wanted to tear down buildings at that time. And there were occasionally times where LPC and BRC would get together when there was a particularly important house, and Louise would show up, and it was fun getting to know you in that venue. And clearly it was a thread of our relationship for many years to come. just like Penny, I also had the privilege of campaigning with Louise, and that's when you really get to understand who she knows, what she knows, and how she thinks about this village. And it was a perspective that I don't think a lot of people in this community have ever had the privilege of getting to know, but I did. And I so thank you for everything you've done for this village. You've been a model for my public service since I came in some years ago as well. So thanks so much, Louise. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. I don't know if you can hear me, but thank you. And I'm waving to all of you. Waving.
We're waving back.
Waving. Thanks again.
Thank you.
And you don't have to wait for the rest of the meeting. Aren't you lucky? Have a good evening.
Now, if I could just
Take care.
Louise, if I could just talk you into letting me retire those benches in the council chambers, I think there'd be a lot of happy residents in this town, but I know that's asking for too much too soon.
No. Those, Chris, this used to be the courthouse. This was the courthouse, and those benches were hard and stiff for a reason.
I know, Louise. I just couldn't help but bring it up. So anyway, all right. Well,
thank you again.
Thank you. It's always fun. If it wasn't fun, we wouldn't do this. So, all right, guys. Can I have a resolution to adopt May I have a motion to adopt resolution number R53 2021?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Rob, roll call vote.
Trustee Dearborn,
Yes.
trustee Lampier,
Yes.
trustee Apatow,
Yes.
trustee Mancini,
Yes.
trustee Kripe,
Yes.
trustee Swerk.
Yes.
That motion carries unanimously. Thank you all. I almost hate to move on. Maybe we should just call it a night.
Yeah.
Time, you know?
I think we'd have a few people who wouldn't be happy.
Yeah, whatever. We're here every week anyway, so it's not like. All right, let's keep it moving here. Item number 7 is approval of the agenda. Does any trustee wish to remove an item on the consent agenda for a separate vote? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the final form of the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Trustee Lampier,
Yes.
trustee Kripe,
Yes.
trustee Swerk,
Yes.
trustee Mancini,
Yes.
trustee Dearborn,
Yes.
trustee Apatow.
Yes.
That motion carries. I will now for the consent agenda, I will ask the village clerk to read the items on the consent agenda.
Thank you. Approval of village council meeting minutes for April 20th, 2021. Approval of the warrant list dated April 30th through May 13th, 2021 in the amount of $1,139,238.08. Resolution number R54, 2021, directional boring contract. Resolution number R55, 2021, memorandum of agreement with Illinois EPA for 93 Green Bay Road. Resolution number R56, 2021, pavement rejuvenation contract. Resolution number R57, 2021, restoration of LGDF revenue. Resolution number R58, 2021, Office 365 renewal subscription. And resolution number R59, 2021, COVID-19 support services reimbursement agreement.
Thanks, Rob. All right, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda by omnibus vote?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Trustee Dearborn,
Yes.
trustee Swerk,
Yes.
trustee Mancini,
Yes.
trustee Kripe,
Yes.
trustee Apatow,
Yes.
trustee Lampier.
Yes.
That motion carries. Thank you. Okay, moving ahead, item number 8, ordinances and resolutions. 8A is ordinance number M10, 2021, Strong Nail City special use at 548 Lincoln Avenue. This request for a special use permit was unanimously approved by the Plan Commission. David will be here to review, and I just want to mention on this one, I did my best to try to keep this from having to go through a full-blown special use permit, because the circumstances are such that this was a change in ownership within the business itself. And it really, they obviously are, doing some interior changes to the shop as well, but it seemed like a no-brainer to me. But evidently our special use permits run to the applicant, not to the business. So that's why we're hearing this one tonight. And I'll turn it over to David at this point.
Yeah, just real quick, the Plan Commission considered the request, reviewed it against the standards for granting a special use in the overlay district. They found the use consistent with the standards and unanimously recommended approval. At the meeting, the applicant and the landlord spoke. There were no members of the public that spoke. And with that, you have an ordinance. If you should choose to waive introduction, we've noticed it for that. And you could waive introduction and adopt, or just introduce. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for David?
Yes, I have one. Just out of curiosity, how many, I know that we made this special use because we were concerned about the number of nail salons on a given block. How many nail salons are on that block?
That is the only nail salon on that block. Nail salons fall under beauty salons. There is one other eyelash business on this block farther to the north.
But it does a different service. Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Okay, Kristen, public comment?
There was no public comment submitted in advance of the meeting for this agenda item. At this time, if anyone in the Zoom platform would like to speak to this issue, please raise your hand using Zoom. There are no hands raised, President Rentz.
Okay, we'll bring it back to council. Any final thoughts or perspectives, guys?
No, I would waive the adoption and introduce, waive the introduction and do adoption same day.
Okay, any other thoughts?
I agree with that.
We all okay with that? Raise your hand if you're not okay. There we go. Okay, then I will move forward at this point. Do I have a motion to waive introduction of ordinance number M10 2021?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Trustee Swerk,
Yes.
trustee Kreip,
Yes.
trustee Mancini,
Yes.
trustee Lampier,
Yes.
trustee Apatow,
Yes.
trustee Dearborn.
Yes.
That motion carries. I have a motion to adopt ordinance number M10 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Trustee Kreip,
Yes.
trustee Swerk,
Yes.
trustee Dearborn,
Yes.
trustee Apatow,
Yes.
trustee Lampier,
Yes.
trustee Mancini.
Yes.
That motion carries. Thank you. All right, moving along. Item number 9, old business, we have none. And item 10, new business. Item A, temporary pool dome zoning amendment, 123 Fuller Drive. This is for some policy direction. Tonight, the village council is being asked for a policy direction on a zoning question which was raised by residents after they received a code violation notice for their installation of a temporary pool dome. It's interesting how over the last month or so, we have dealt with more items that would fall under the begging for forgiveness instead of asking for permission concept. And so I think this is another of what seems to be a long line of things that have popped up during COVID because everybody's at home and could look over the fence and see what their neighbors are doing. So now we've got to figure this one out. David, I will turn it over to you for your presentation and to see if we can move this thing forward one way or another.
Thank you, President Rentz. So as President Rentz indicated, the applicant is requesting that the Village Council consider adopting text amendments to allow a temporary pool dome without having to meet all of the zoning requirements, given that the pool dome is temporary in nature. The applicant's property is at 123 Fuller. It's zoned R5 single family residential. The property is located north of Winnetka Avenue on Fuller on the east side of the street. As you can see here, a new home was constructed on the property in 2016 and 17, and then a pool added in 2019. Included in the materials are photos of the dome. Just to note that in 2019, the village did meet with the property owner to learn more about the proposed temporary pool dome she was planning to install, and informed her that it would need to meet all zoning requirements, given that our zoning ordinance does not make a distinction between temporary and permanent structures. We had conversations or emails going back and forth. We then sent her a zoning determination letter in December of that year, clearly stating that a temporary pool dome would need to meet applicable zoning requirements. And then time passed by, and then in November of 2020, the village received a complaint regarding the dome, and we sent a code violation notice to the property owner. Just to note that a code violation notice is more of a warning letter. It's not a citation. That would be our next step. We initially give a violation notice first. Then in then in December, that owner requested that the council consider a text amendment. And this is the first we've been able to put this item on your agenda for discussion, given the other items you've had on your agenda. So as indicated in the staff report, there are 3 zoning requirements that the dome does not comply with. That would be roof lot coverage, gross floor area, and side yard setback. That information is provided here in a table and in the staff report. Just to note, last year, we dealt with an issue where, again, our code doesn't really have a temporary use or temporary structure section. We adopted some code amendments for the schools. So the schools could have temporary tents up for an extended period of time. And here on the slide is a summary of what those standards that we adopted are. I only note that, again, it's an example of something that's more temporary in nature, not designed to be permanent, and how we recently amended the code to accommodate that situation. As a reminder, in terms of how we process zoning code text amendments, is the request is first presented to the village council, and then the village council will make a determination whether they want to study the issue or consider it further. If so, then we will schedule a formal public hearing on the text amendment. The council will need to determine if that public hearing will occur before you, or if you want to refer it to one of your advisory bodies. If it's referred to one of your advisory bodies, their recommendation would then come back to you, and then you would consider an ordinance making any changes at a future meeting. So the issues for the village council tonight are: 1, is it appropriate to allow temporary pool domes that do not meet all or some of the applicable zoning requirements? If yes, what process and standards should we use? So currently the first option, which the applicant could pursue, would be zoning variations. And we have our standard zoning variation process. They would have to meet all of these zoning variation standards. Two that can be challenging for applicants are the property in question cannot yield a reasonable return under the conditions allowed by regulations of the district. And the other one is, that is often a challenge to meet is the plight of the owner is due to unique circumstances, generally meant to mean unique features of the property, not unique circumstances that the occupant is personally experienced. So the one option is we leave it as it is, and the applicant could request variations under the current zoning variation process. In this instance, just so you know, the particular variation request would go to the ZBA, and given one of the requests, the whole request would have to come to the village council for approval. Other ways we could handle this is amend the code to allow temporary pool domes and say they don't need to meet any zoning zoning standards because they're temporary in nature. And I guess we would need to decide what that temporary in nature means in terms of a period of time. Another one would be kind of similar to the tent amendment is we said they didn't need to meet all of the zoning standards, but they had to at least meet the setback standards. If they could not meet the setback standards, they had to receive special approval from the village council for those setback deviations. And another possible option is we establish a new zoning review process, whether it goes just to the council, whether it goes just to the ZBA, but there would be a process, notice requirements, and maybe a different set of standards that aren't such a high bar as our current zoning variation standards. Those are some potential options if the council wishes to consider allowing a temporary pool dome that doesn't meet all or some of the village's applicable zoning requirements. And with that, I'll turn it back to President Rintz.
Okay. Let me think here. Maybe it would be a good idea to bring the applicant up and have them state their case, and then we'll open it up for questions to David after that. I'd like to hear what the applicant has to say, though.
As President Rentz, I will promote the applicant to panelist.
I did it. Hi.
Hi.
Can I first start off by saying, Chris, I'm a little bit disappointed that it sounded like you were saying that we're in a begging for forgiveness moment here. And the truth is, and Penny, I hope you can chime in to support me on this. I started this, I don't know how to use it, I'm sorry. I started this process 2 years ago. And by going after first of all, offhandedly, when I was at the village, when I was at the village hall paying for something, I made a mention to the friend that was with me. I said, "Oh, I'm so excited. We got our pool dome." And Lorianne's like, "You're not allowed to do that." And I was like, "What?" I had no idea. Like there's no remote reflection of anything like that on the village website. So you don't know what you don't know. So I was like, "Oh my gosh, okay." So I said, "Well, what can I give you?" And I gave them all the information at that time and blah, blah, blah. And I said to David, I'm willing, obviously I want to have a meeting. I don't want to be sneak attacked and surprised. Like if you have any specific problems, I would like you to tell me those before the meeting so that I can be prepared. And instead it wasn't like that at all. It was a total ambush. I went in, I had like 4 people at the village, telling me and confusing me about all these things about a pool dome and how I don't meet these standards, and it's going to cost me a ton of money, and I can apply for a variance, but nobody ever gets a variance, and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, what is going on? This isn't even on a village website. And David quoted to me some obscure thing that I had to go to the library to look up, because you cannot even find it on the village website. So that's how this started over 2 years ago. So at that point, I went to one of your coffee connections and I sat down with Penny and I said, what is going on? I would like to have a meeting because, you know, this just doesn't seem right. And fast forward, nothing was able to be done. And then we're in COVID, we're in a situation, I've had the pool dome in my garage, already purchased, mind you, for over a year or something. And we were like, okay, you know what? We just need to put this up because we have done everything that we as homeowners in this community can do. And this isn't fair. And so, but meanwhile, we continued the dialogue. And so I have done everything that this village has asked for me. And my hope is that our village is, you know, we look for ways of how to do things, how to be solutions driven and forward thinking. And instead of just, you know, say no first and pick obscure reasons why. So, and I've laid out my arguments a million times to a million people, and I'm not going to get into that now, but here's where we are. And so, Chris, it really bothers me because you make it seem like, oh, we don't care. We're just going to put up a pool dome and see what happens. That could not be, hold on, that could not be further from the truth.
Dan, excuse me, that comment was intended for the probably half a dozen items that we've addressed over the past 4 to 5 months at Village Council with issues that are very similar to you, where unwitting residents weren't aware of the ordinances that prohibited what they were doing. And we ended up having to deal with it after the fact rather than being proactive about it. So you can just kind of let that one go and let's get on with your presentation, please.
Well, and Chris, to be fair, I mean, I think we did say that this would be a good time to try it out. You know, that we didn't really know what a pool dome was, and given COVID, that, you know, the Rectons had put it up and this would be a good opportunity for us to, they had it anyway, it was there to try it out and see how it worked. So, I mean, we did give tacit approval for it to be up for the time being. So, and talk about it. Right. So
thanks, Penny.
Yep.
Leanne, you want to finish up your presentation, please?
I don't really have much of a presentation except to say, because I heard you guys all talking earlier saying, you know, you like people to talk long enough to where they hang themselves. So I'm going to try to be wiser than that. And I've given you all the information I could possibly give you. So why don't you guys ask me questions and let's see if we can make a deal.
Okay, thank you, Leanne. We'll now go to questions from council to David and or the applicant. And John, you can lead things off.
Yeah, I got a question for David. I know you made reference to the school tents, which I really remember that clearly. And that was for an extended period of time. Temporary tent has an approval process for maybe 30 days, if I remember, David, is that right?
Yes, it's a much shorter period of time. Yes.
Right. So the request before us from the homeowner is requesting the temporary to be how long? 30 days, 45 days?
Actually, can I jump in here now? Is that possible?
Sure.
Okay, so here's what I have found in this first year. So our weather obviously is a little unpredictable, to say the least. And the truth of the matter is the pool dome is not designed to be, or it's not in the homeowner's interest for the pool dome to be up in hot weather because it degrades the plastic and da-da-da. It's also not in the homeowner. My pool dome is still up. I only kept it up this long in case my hope was that I could be outside tonight and like show you guys if you had any questions in the moment. And then it rained. It's coming down on Thursday, but it's not in my best interest to keep it up this long because all the dirt and garbage from the spring, I have to clean all that off. So ideally, I, as a homeowner, would like to have the flexibility to decide when to put it up and when to take it down within, I would say, 6 months, with it typically being in October to a March, April.
Okay.
So I could
Very
put it
good.
up in November, but you know, if it's easier to get people, or we see bad weather company coming, that kind of thing.
And I did drive by to look at it today, so thank you for leaving it up. I got back in town yesterday, so so that was helpful.
Rob Apatow.
Hey, Chris, I'm just final. Is this a question period or is this for us to discuss?
This is right now is just questions to either David or the applicant.
So, yeah, I guess one to David then. When we talked about this structure at the schools, to me, it's a whole totally different situation. That's for the better good of the community. This is for the better good of one homeowner, which normally I would want to be reasonable. But it seems like you were pretty, in your mind, were you pretty clear about, because this will happen over and over again otherwise. Were you pretty clear? It sounds like we've had multiple discussions, and it seems like you were pretty clear in discussing this homeowner that this was not going to be permissible. Is that correct?
Yeah, had conversations with the homeowner in terms of requiring, needing to meet the zoning standards of the zoning district in which the dome is located.
Yeah.
Or she could request variations of those standards.
Yeah.
And then the other option is the text amendment, which she is pursuing this evening in terms of providing more relief from the zoning standards, not having to go through the variation process.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. That's helpful. I mean, the homeowner talked about being solutions driven and forward thinking. To me, this has nothing to do with that. This is to me the consideration of your neighbors. This is to me. I looked at the pictures and it is. I mean that's saying the neighbor can come next time and say I would like a Ferris wheel for 6 weeks in my backyard. It just has nothing to me. It's doing it forward thinking. I think we just have to be very careful about where we're going here.
Yeah, and another question, David. Aside from the roof area, GFA and side yard, a pool from a stormwater standpoint accepts rainwater. So when you put a dome over it or a structure over it, while the structure is up, is diverting that rainwater out of the pool and into a yard. So if any of this goes through, I think stormwater requirements have to be looked at also. Whether or not the existing stormwater system can handle the area where the pool was.
We do treat a pool as impermeable surface for storm water purposes.
You do? Okay.
Yes, we do.
All right.
And I might add, I have a cover on my pool anyway, so I don't know how it would be getting water. It's just like.
Well, the cover, when you take the cover off, probably ends up in the pool in the water.
No, you have to pump it off. Otherwise the cover doesn't move.
Okay.
Other questions for David or Leanne? Andy.
Hey, Leanne, I'm totally unfamiliar with pool domes and just some practical questions. How much of an undertaking is it to put it up and take it down? Is it a simple thing or is it a big deal?
Well, I mean, depends on how you define big deal. It requires two people, mainly because my pool is like roughly like an 18 by 40, a 16 by 40 about, and it's all anchored around. So when you take it down or you put it up, you have to either inflate it or deflate it, which simply means cutting the power to the blower.
Okay.
And then you have to unhook the cable that runs through the anchors. And then people on both sides have to like accordion fold it and then fold it again and then put it in a zippered storage. However, like I said, you have to clean it. So there's that process.
Do you have to keep it inflated all the time or can you just like turn on a switch and it inflates when you use it?
Well, I could cut the power to the blower and reinflate, deflate as needed. Although, in fact, what happens when you have bad weather, say a big snowfall this winter, the pool dome will fall.
Right.
Until you pump the water, then the water melts because it's sitting on top of your cover. And then you pump that water off and the pool will automatically inflate again. So yes, you could do it. I don't know as a homeowner, that's really a best practice. And you know what I mean, to have to do that every day if you want to use it.
Yeah, how did it hold up during, we had that stretch with all that snow? I mean.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting, and it's actually kind of cool because like I mentioned, when first me being naive in my first time wanting, to preserve this pool dome at all costs after this heartache, I was out there trying to get the snow off of it and try to stay ahead of it, and that was just not going to happen. So eventually I said, you know what, I'm just going to let the snow fall and let's see what happens. And it literally just, the dome collapsed slowly, I might add, and then the water melted, and then I pumped it off, and as I was pumping it off, the dome was reinflating. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Did you get any feedback from your neighbors before putting it up? Get any input like?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. First of all, I should point out that I don't know what pictures you've seen and everything. And also, David, I should add that I don't understand about the side yard setback, how we don't meet that. So that's kind of news to me. So maybe if you don't mind, you could email me separately and explain to me how we don't meet that. Okie doke?
Sure.
I think.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So
that,
then going back to the neighbors, I have the good fortune of having 5 backyard neighbors, which is totally atypical, I'm sure. So I have a neighbor that is to the left of me with half of my yard. And then I have a neighbor on Sheridan who is a small portion to the left of me on the backyard. Then I have a neighbor directly behind me that I had the fence issue with, but everything is good between us now. And then I have to the right of me in the back, I have the people who own Razas, and they have a pool and a pool house where our small chunk of fence meets. And then my next door neighbors are related to my backyard neighbors. They're on the right, and we gave their kids swim lessons. So my fence neighbor and our swim lesson neighbor, you could say in theory that they are the most affected because they have the most skin in the game with respect to my backyard, and they have no issue at all. My neighbor to the left of me, they haven't said anything. They were well aware of it. Lisa White, who is a small corner of it, she's not even here half the time. She has a place in North Carolina. I didn't tell her, but she hasn't said anything. And then she's not affected by it. Her house is extremely far away. And then the people from Razas, they have a pool house there, and their house is on Sheridan. So again, you'd have to be on the top floor looking over into my house to see the pool dome. It's really not that tall either, but it's certainly, and then what you see from the street is a teeny tiny little portion of it over my driveway gate. So it's really not that, it's not a Ferris wheel. It's meets the maximum height of a gazebo. And, so I don't think it's really as imposing as you think.
Yeah, I did see it. Are there see-through options? Yours in the pictures, and in fact, when I saw it, it seemed like it's kind of brown. Is that?
Oh, okay. So yeah, as a matter of fact, you have to have it see-through. My dome is see-through. My dome is see-through around the perimeter, and then the top of it is what is a color. And it's see-through because we have an automatic, you want to be able to see people so nobody, for safety reasons, I suppose. And we have an automatic cover. So, we can manage everything through visibility, make sure everything is safe. Things are closed, things are open, blah, blah, blah.
Why is the roof not see-through?
The only thing I can come up, I don't know because I've never asked the question, but I will say, understanding the construction of the dome, it could be for 2 reasons. 1, heat, because you get more heat through the see-through. Yeah. And 2 might be, it's a different kind of material. It's both this kind of plastic material, but I think that my sense is that clear is thicker. And so that would increase weight. That's my thinking.
Yeah. Like I said, I don't know much about pool domes except what I can Google. And so thank you. That's all I had. I just wanted to kind of understand those practical issues. Thanks, Leanne.
Well, Andy, dude, I gave you a ton of information on pool domes. You should be a professor of pool domes now.
It will be my next career.
Okay.
Trustee Kripe, in the materials that Leanne submitted from the company, it says they do not make units with clear tops, as the clear material magnifies the rays of the sun and the heat buildup within the dome will damage the unit.
Okay, so I was right, heat. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Kim.
Hi, I was reading through your letter in request for some more information on what is temporary and structures and all that, which I totally agree with having some more definition to that in our codes. My question is for David. I see that there's reference to garden domes, golf domes, bubbles, etc., and pool ice rinks, and them being held to the same standard. So obviously ice rinks don't have a roof, so roof block coverage wouldn't make a difference for that. Impermeable, maybe. What's the process today for these garden bubbles? I haven't seen one. Are you referring to the bubbles people have had during COVID? Or could you explain what you're trying to reference?
Exactly. Yeah, because I mean, as far as I know, nobody has one, but my point is that they're out there to buy.
Okay. So I was going to ask David, have you seen anything like this come through before that's separate from, let's say, a pool dome that might be like an apples to apples comparison?
No, the only reference that I haven't seen, or have heard about ice skating rinks.
Sure.
Which is technically a form of a structure. It may not be an enclosed structure. But have not received requests for the domes for in a residential setting. Had businesses talk about them for a commercial setting, restaurants, but we haven't had any of the inflatable domes or domes. We've had some greenhouses that a restaurant installed on their patio.
Thank you. So I'm just curious for how often this would come up, if it's something we would be changing our coding on. How relevant this is to others.
May I just interject really quick? For me, ice rinks should be lumped into the same category for reasons I've outlaid many times, and it may not count for, say, roof coverage, but it is still a seasonal temporary structure, and everybody has them all over town every single year, and they've never had to pay a fee. They've never had to pay a permit, or get a permit.
Any other questions, John?
Yeah, as long as Kim is done, I don't want to step on her. Okay, so I guess Leanne, knowing that you were having the issues going through the village early on before you even bought the dome.
No. I already had it. It was because I made an offhanded comment and Lori Ann was like, you can't do that.
Great. But then he knew that there were issues and chose to put it up without having the full approval of the village. Why did you end up putting it up?
Well, I told you, I tried to work. I started with Penny saying, Penny, here's my issues and here's this and here's that. Can we start to talk about, I wanted to take it to the village council. And we started that conversation, and it just kind of went nowhere after so long. And then I went back to them and I said, listen, it's COVID. We have an opportunity here. I am one person and we should use me as a test case. And let's see what happens.
And again, I probably would be a different attitude if this was a COVID issue only. And when COVID goes away, the dome goes away. It doesn't sound like that's the case though.
No, the point of it being a test issue during COVID was a matter of, this is an opportunity where we haven't made any headway in over a year. Let's take this opportunity. It's a win-win to see if it works. What are the pros? What are the cons? And let's get some movement on this.
Leanne, I'm sorry. I was on mute before. John, I will say that I did talk about this with Leanne, and I believe we talked about it as a council, but that in COVID, it was an opportunity she already had the dome, to put it up and see what it was and how it would work and whether, how we would consider it. So she didn't go around the village on this, that we tacitly agreed to put it up and see what it was. And because of COVID this year, the family couldn't go to the normal pool. So it was a good time to test it. So she put it up kind of as a test case, and we gave her the tacit approval to do it. So it wasn't a formal approval, so she shouldn't be penalized for that.
So did I miss a meeting? I don't recall this ever being discussed as an option to, oh, let's try it or anything. And then now maybe we can get David now to fill us in. And I guess to
90%
kind of
sure.
get my point going is that if you're having problems, our meetings are regularly scheduled. There's always public input to come talk to us about anything you have problems with. So I just kind of frustrating that nothing was ever properly requested.
It was on, we did talk about it. Wasn't it on the village agenda?
I don't remember, Chris.
It was.
No, I don't remember either.
Penny, you and I had several conversations on it, and I know
We were
there was
notified.
a lot of staff talk that, during COVID, we weren't going to be running around aggressively enforcing questionable issues in the code. But
It may have come through on Rob's.
I don't remember it being discussed at the council level. Maybe Rob can help.
Can I make one point of clarification if I haven't made it clear to this point? A temporary pool dome would be allowed if it meets all the zoning requirements. If someone wants to have a small little igloo on their patio, it would be allowed from a zoning perspective as long as they're meeting their setbacks. So I just want to make it clear that if Leanne had some extra GFA and roof lot coverage and met the setback, it would be allowed. So it's not so much the question of the item, it's that it has to meet the zoning.
And would that be a 30-day temporary, or how long?
No, it could be up all year.
Would they have to get a permit for that, or could they just put it up and know that they're within the requirements?
They would more than likely need to get a permit for it because of the other items associated with it. And we want to ensure building code requirements are being applied.
So David.
So if Leanne had enough room to build a structure around the pool, a permanent structure, she could. So the issue is, I think, Leanne, from your perspective, her argument is it's temporary in nature, so she thinks it should be treated differently. And that's a debatable question in terms of its impact on the surrounding properties. And that's the issue that's before the council.
So David, clarify to me where you're saying this is like you could do a temporary if all the zoning was met, but you're saying temporary could be permanent. I don't get that.
Well, someone can have an enclosed pool in the community.
Totally agree.
As long as they meet all of the zoning requirements.
Well, permanent would also be building code.
Yes, and if she wanted to have this up for an extended period of time beyond 180 days, there are additional building code requirements she would have to meet. But that's a building code issue, not a zoning code.
Right. But going back to the temporary structure, like for the tenants, it was 30 days. What is the temporary time for a temporary structure?
Well, there's not a code definition of that, but the practice has been generally less than 30 days.
Right.
Right.
Because I go back to when it gets longer, it basically becomes permanent. And it becomes permanent. My issue is also safety. If that dome does collapse in snow, there could be someone inside that pool. I mean, now you're talking building codes and other issues. So, I mean, I think, you know, it should go through the whole process and go through a variance, whatever it takes.
Chris,
But I'm not in support of a 6-month temporary enclosure.
You know what, I think that, you know, the zoning code, I think we've learned over the years, and you know, this is not perfect. And there are a lot of gaps, and maybe there's not a zoning code in existence that's perfect. So yes, there might be some slippage here and there, but the zoning code in part is certainly designed to protect the neighbors. I mean, that goes into the requirements that need to be met for variances. And so I don't think the discussion so much around how it sits at 123 Fuller, it's behind the fence, the neighbors get swim lessons. To me, that doesn't really get to the issue. The issue is we're talking about precedent here. It could be, you know, in a very open piece of property that affects an entire block or village green or whatever it might be. So I think that we're looking at precedent here. I was like John, I was very confused. I read David's memo. It sounded to me like there was discussion about that there were zoning issues here. Why didn't we go through ZBA? All of a sudden the thing is put up and Leanne is saying, well, she didn't get, you know, she had mixed messages or something at Village Hall. I don't know what happened here, COVID, et cetera. But it seems to me that it was probably clear there were zoning issues here, and zoning, you know, there are reasons for these zoning codes and limitations and so on. So I don't know. It seems to me it should have gone through zoning from the get-go, and I'm sorry it didn't.
Chris, I think you're on mute or your mic has killed itself.
He's on mute. Chris, you're on mute.
Is that better?
Yeah, there you go.
That was a good point, Bob. And I think before we go any further, I would really like to see if there's anybody either in Village Hall or in the community room that might want to speak on this issue as well. So Kristen, can you open it up for public comment for a moment?
Yes, President Rentz, I can confirm in council chambers, there are no members of the audience present. And we currently have 3 attendees remain in the Zoom platform. So at this time, if you are in the meeting and would like to comment on this issue, would you please raise your hand using the Zoom platform? No one raised their hand, President Rentz.
Okay, so we've been through that part of it. Now we can go ahead and just open it up for council deliberations. So have at it, everybody. Penny, Penny, I know there was something that you were interested in integrating into the conversation, but it doesn't sound like this is what we're talking about. So
can I just ask the question? First of all, I want to clarify, and if it's on me, it's on me. I totally apologize. I don't have the documentation on my computer in terms of the archive, but I don't know whether it was through just Rob's weekly update or something. And again, my memory is terrible these days, but I feel pretty sure at some point there was at least some notification. I thought we discussed it. I'm sorry if I am remembering incorrectly. At any rate, so the choice that was put to the rectons was to go through the ZBA for a variation or to request a text amendment. And so we're talking about the text amendment. So that was the choice that was presented to them. So, you know, I think the thing that we need to do is to move forward in terms of deciding about what we want to do about it. You know, the process that was followed and them having it up this year. Personally, I think, you know, it's useful to see what they are. And so now we can make an informed decision. You know, I don't think we need to beat them up about it being up at this point, because we really need to understand what happened to do that. At any rate, I had asked Chris at the beginning in terms of if we want to at least talk about the possibility of temporary structures. and again, this is just one example. It doesn't exist in our zoning code. Should we have some provision for temporary structures in our zoning code, whether it's this or something else, rather than a full-blown building structure, which is a different kind of a thing, right? And the question I had is relative to what are we trying to accomplish through our zoning code, and how do we think about temporary structures in terms of, roof lot coverage, in terms of bulk, and in terms of impermeable surface, because a temporary structure has, impacts all of these areas, and how do we want to think about it? So I don't have a position on this one way or another. Again, if it's on me for giving the impression that everything was okay to go, I'm sorry, it was my fault. But I do think that in a larger way, beyond just the rectans, I think that this is a topic worth discussing. And again, I don't have a position on it one way or another. I just think it's a possibility that may be becoming to us in the future. As with COVID, people realize they like being outside in the wintertime, but they might like a little more shelter. The possibility of things like this coming before us in the future is real. So it's an opportunity. So whether or not we want to take it is fine. Yeah.
The one thing I'm curious about, based on what you're saying here, if temporary domes are something that nobody's got a fundamental problem with, which process would you suggest as these things potentially pop up? I mean, which one do you think?
Well, I don't think that the zoning going through a variation process is applicable, because clearly it doesn't really affect it more affects how you enjoy your property rather than a reasonable return. So I think the question is are these kinds of ways in which people can enjoy their property something we want to think about or not? So I think it's really more on that way. It would be really difficult in my mind to apply the ZBA types of standards. It just doesn't make sense. And so, either it would be something that we would be interested in allowing and regulating, or it just doesn't make sense. So that would be the kind of discussion I would be interested in having.
Penny, are you saying that, just so I understand, are you saying that the zoning, sort of the setbacks and the roof coverage, et cetera, for a permanent, in this case, indoor pool structure, should be different than for a temporary? No.
No.
So should those zoning standards be met for a temporary?
I think that those are the kinds of things we need to talk about. The kinds of standards like public safety and yielding a reasonable return, those kind of standards aren't applicable here. So that's why I in terms of going for a regular type of variation, I don't think that's the right kind of a standard, because, no, of course your house would, your house is what your house is. And this is just, it's a way to enjoy your property. But, obviously it is some sort of a structure. It's not a permanent structure. How do we think about it? I mean, we just have no vocabulary or way to think about it right now. And I think it's strongly possible that there will be other types of requests that might come forward in the future. So, it's something that our zoning ordinance doesn't contemplate. And do we want to contemplate it?
Yeah. So I'm not in favor of a text amendment, at least for just the application in front of us today, or the situation today. Because if you change the text amendment for allow a dome, does it mean you have to have something under the dome? Or can I just go put a dome in my backyard because I want more house space in the winter?
Well, I would think it would be.
You could have everybody having a dome in their backyard. Or I want a winter garden in my backyard. I want a dome.
Right.
Or how about an ice rink?
Or ice rinks.
Right.
That's right.
I agree.
And they're all up. They're all over Winnetka, all over.
Right.
Can I just jump in here and say a couple of points?
Leanne, we're in the part of the meeting right now that's council deliberation. So we appreciate you being here and being available when we have questions, but it really is now up to the council to kind of decide what our next steps are. And we need to do that. We need to do that unimpeded, if that's okay.
Well, no,
we're looking at direction. So I don't think the text amendment would be something I'm in favor of. the current situation in front of us, the dome is coming down. She has the next few months to go through a zoning variation and then go that route. I'm not so sure that'll be successful, but that's an option she has.
So I'll weigh in. So and maybe it's because I'm partial to the zoning process because I said I'm a zoning board. With these issues, there's a lot of fact issues that we just barely scratch the surface of. It's interesting. The pool dome idea is interesting. I definitely can see the arguments for why they could be a good thing, but it's a fact intensive issue thing. And we're not armed with those facts right now. I kind of have a general understanding now of what the thing is, but certainly not the level of understanding of, for example, the safety issues. I can imagine there are a lot of safety issues as there are with anything dealing with a swimming pool. And so, I think what's been presented to us is, should it go through zoning or should there be a text amendment? I would suggest maybe a little bit of a combination of the two, that it should go through a zoning process consistent with our existing zoning standards, with possible exception of one that I've always had trouble with. And Bob, you've heard me talk about this one before. It's the whole reasonable return element. When I was on zoning, I never understood what that meant. I understood how we interpreted it. I don't know where it came from. I don't think your average resident understood what it meant. But as a practical matter, what it means is it would be virtually impossible for a temporary structure to ever get a zoning amendment, because by definition, it's not something that's going to enhance the return on a property because it's temporary. Right. So I wouldn't want to lead Leanne. I wouldn't want you to think, oh, go through our zoning process, you have a chance. Just based on the plain language as it's written, you should actually have no chance under that standard. And I think we just have to acknowledge that. So if the idea is that this should go through zoning, and I think it should, I think every resident deserves a full hearing on the facts, and I like new ideas. Even if ultimately we don't side with them, I always think it's cool that we're like, hey, well, we've never done this before, maybe we should. So you should get that hearing. This isn't that hearing, right? You're not set up for success tonight. We're not set up for success when, you're sort of feeling like on your heels in a defensive mode, and we don't have that nice fact record. But I wouldn't want to send you to a process that I can't in good conscience tell you you'd have a shot on, because just you wouldn't, right? I mean, you wouldn't be able to show no reasonable return. So my suggestion is, yeah, I do think you should go through the zoning process. I don't know how we do it, but at some point, I think we need to revisit that no reasonable return standard should not apply to applications requesting relief for temporary structures, because it's impossible.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. That's true.
That would be my suggestion.
Yeah.
Well, Andy, wouldn't the ZBA, since this, David stated from the outset that this would end up at the village council anyway.
It would.
Couldn't the ZBA come with a recommendation, addressing all issues and say, it doesn't meet standard one, but we would give variations in the certain areas and so on, and the council could then take that into account. So I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying, but it would end up, they certainly have
back. Yeah, you're
prerogative right to do that.
It would be back here, right?
When I talk about the fact record, there's some things that, knowing zoning, I know the diligence they put into it. The safety thing would get a real deep dive, the opaque roof, how is that going to affect your ability, or the ability of a neighbor to see if someone's, all of that stuff is going to get a deep dive, as it should. Right. And there's probably arguments for it's safer having a dome because it's an effective pool. All of that should get a fair hearing. The other thing that you can get a fair development of a fact record on is how, other than just like, I don't think it's that big, or other people get a real idea of how it's affecting light and air. Zoning is really good at going through those things. And the other thing they're good at doing, candidly, is talking to applicants and saying, well, could you do this? Maybe this structure is a better alternative, and getting people more likely to an outcome that is acceptable to all parties. right now, no one is set up for success with where we are. But Bob, I like your idea. Yeah.
I think additionally, we need to give David some clarity in what a temporary structure is. Unless it's something with the schools that we did for the betterment of the children. As David said, a temporary structure was 30 days or less. And so 6 months is not a temporary structure, guys. So
that's a seasonal structure.
That's a seasonal structure. So we just need some real clarity to give him teeth that he needs to try and keep some continuity thing.
Right.
Otherwise, after today.
And I totally agree with that too. And I think there is a significant difference between a recurring seasonal structure and a true temporary one.
Right.
And I don't know if we have definitions in place for that, but if we were looking at other definitional or text amendment changes, that's certainly one that would require some work.
Because I think a true temporary structure, every year you got to reapply for one.
Yeah, and you wouldn't
pretty
want
sure.
That'd be crazy.
You know, and again, back to the safety issue, the size of the pool versus the size of the enclosure, you probably should have a safe walkway around the edge of the pool on the entire inside to get out of the building, get out of the water and get out of the enclosure. So they're bigger than the pool.
Yeah.
You know, it's all those things.
It's the size of the impermeable surface. So it's at the edge of the pavement. So we have already allotted for that impermeable surface portion. It's then the bulk that becomes the consideration. The height and the square footage of space. Andy, and as I said to Chris, the reason I was interested in talking about, the bulk and what's the purpose is because I wanted to hear from the people with zoning board experience, because I've been on plan commission, but I've never been on zoning board. So your perspective is really helpful. I really, really appreciate that. That was exactly the kind of information I was hoping to get out of tonight's discussion. Thank you.
And I do think it's a cool idea, Leanne. I mean, what everyone complains about all the time is, it's not worth it to build a pool in the Midwest. And if this is something that works, yeah, cool. But I just think we're not wired for a successful process here at all tonight.
So
can I at some point say a final thought?
Sure. I think we've run the gamut, and I'm feeling like we're circling around an idea that's going to send you to zoning with an understanding we'll be seeing you back.
No, I understand that, but that's not what my thought is related to. Two things. One is I have been delayed in this process until May. So if I would have been on the agenda much earlier, I would have time to get some sort of resolution in zoning before I lose next winter again to put this up, because there's no resolution. So that's not very fair to me. But the other thing is that ice rinks, I always come back to ice rinks. If I need to have a permit, and I need to meet one, all the building codes for my seasonal structure, which is just like an ice rink. Yeah, they don't have roofed lot coverage, but they have impermeable they need to meet. And if you're ice rink, maybe you don't meet that. They have lighting. Maybe you've got crazy lighting, and that's lighting noise or whatever they call it. So maybe an ice rink, needs to follow, and maybe they don't meet the setbacks. So I think it's not fair to have me go through all this, and I have to do it at somehow an accelerated rate, which I probably will not meet. And you guys allow ice rinks to go ahead, business as usual.
Okay, well, Leanna, let me just respond to that. It was my choice to defer your matter until May, because I didn't want to hear it during the winter, where we might be forced into a situation where in the middle of January or the middle of February or the middle of March, that village council felt strongly enough about this that we would be asking you to remove it at that time. So I believed it in your best interest, and in the best interest of fairness, since you had the thing up already, to not talk about it until it was time for it to come down so we could reload for the next year. So my bad in thinking I was doing you a favor by not forcing the issue until we got into springtime. So I'll take the hit on that one because it was my call.
Well,
And I also still
I
think there's time to
appreciate
get it, to go through the process.
Of course there is.
Yeah.
You got everything you need right here, Leanne. I mean, it's just a matter of getting together with David and filling out the application and getting on the agenda.
Okay.
Do we need to address the issue that Andy brought up in terms of reasonable return relative to a temporary structure? Is that's
something we can work on separately, Penny?
Okay, great. Yeah, I just wanted to be sure that we followed up and looped back on that.
No, and actually, I feel like we need to just have a garbage bag study session that's got all these little hanging.
Not garbage.
They're just kind of sitting over there in the corner waiting for us to deal with, and maybe just plow through them all in one sitting. So where are we at here, guys? I mean, is the traditional zoning request, knowing that Leanne will be back to see us sometime in the fall, is that pretty much where you guys are thinking this should go right now?
Yeah, and just, she needs to decide, if she wants to do that process, knowing where some of us stand.
And I think also what's the best way to clarify what the 30-day limit on temporary structures, if we're going to do that.
Well, if she's going for a variance, she's going to get a variance for the 30 days to go 6 months.
Or a recurring seasonal.
Yeah, but just.
I don't even think that is crystal clear. It should be.
Well,
right. And,
yeah.
And knowing that some
we
of us may
haven't
not
had a
approve it.
discussion on that yet, Rob. So
And again, it was knowing the odds of going through the process and getting approved.
So wait, if she goes through the zoning process, does she have to do it one time and one time only if she gets the variance? Or will she?
If she gets the variance at the ZBA level, we don't need to see her.
But then let's say it goes through that and it comes up to us and let's say it's approved, she won't have to revisit this again.
Well, if it's still considered a temporary structure, that might be a yearly permit process. I'm not sure how you legally do that.
And come through this.
Well, we could, I mean, in the enabling ordinance, we could just have a renewal feature in it that.
Okay.
It's a piece of paper in a form every year that they have to file at the desk and pay $10, and then you're good for another year if we decide to go that way. We're not there yet, John, so it's hard to say, but we can do those sorts of things as we deal with the ordinances.
But the zoning board probably cannot do that yearly renewal. Is that correct?
No,
that
we would have
on
to do
the council.
Right. We would have to do that. So is that, are we good?
That makes sense to me.
Penny? John?
Yes.
Are you frozen or are we good?
No, I'm good, but knowing that without changing text, that if Leanne is successful one time through the zoning board, without coming to the council, she's going through the zoning board every year.
Well, we're gonna discuss the text.
Yes.
Right?
Remember, we don't have to follow we aren't bound as rigid. And Peter, I'm just waiting for you to save me here, buddy, but I do not believe that village council is bound by the same constraints that the ZBA is.
And also we have the capability to discuss inserting in a zoning ordinance, temporary structure and seasonal structure. But we need to think about it. We need to be informed, right?
Yeah, but keep in mind, one of the ways of, she might get approval through the zoning board and not have to come to council unless she has other issues. And I'm just saying, if she gets through that process and comes to council, I may be one of the people that may not like it.
David Schoen, I think on this, you would come back to the council, correct?
Correct. One of the GFA variation will require village council approval. So it will come back to the council.
Right.
Yeah. And again,
but there are no guarantees as always.
And I view this as a larger issue that has been brought to our attention that we need to address, from a global standpoint, not just situational.
Another case of the delayed comp plan, which is where a lot of this sort of discussion was supposed to happen.
Right.
Which is nice to get community guidance on a lot of these issues rather than having to deal with them
It's right up there with Garden Parkways.
This is the third issue this year that really should have been a comp plan subject, so that we would have some more guidance than just us figuring it out on the fly. So
Thank you, COVID.
yeah, thanks, COVID. So we good, guys?
Yeah.
Awesome. Leanne, thank you. Do you understand what's going on here? Kristen?
Yeah, I mean, I think it sounds like, Andy said, good luck in zoning, and the cards are stacked against you, that you guys seem to be kind of unwilling to look at the word seasonal instead of temporary. And I'll be back, and John Swerk is going to be like, screw you, I'm not going to vote for this anyway, no matter what happens. So that's my takeaway.
Okay, I'm sorry that's what you're leaving with. We're trying to provide you with a reasonable path to possible success. I'm sorry that that's the way you feel, Leanne.
Well, I hope I get somewhere with zoning with enough time. If there's all these like things that these hurdles, they can't, like, the system is not designed to address this type of thing. So
well, if I were in the business of giving advice to residents, which I'm not, I would probably. So this is just generic that I'm reaching out to you now on, is I wouldn't go too hard on your ZBA appearance, knowing that you're going to end up here anyway. But
what do you mean go too hard?
Just help the zoning board build a case, but I don't think that you necessarily have to do a heck of a lot more than you've already provided to us.
Agreed.
I think the key purpose is to work with them to develop the factual record, provide information. That's what we need. That's what we don't have. So even if they rule against you, it's not pointless.
Right.
Okay.
We'll have something to work from then that is from a group that we put a lot of trust and faith and belief in what they do. And it always serves as a really good starting point for us at a much higher level than where we're at tonight. And that's why it's important to get the case from the zoning board and bring it to council.
Understood.
So, great. Okay. Well, thanks, Leanne.
Thank you.
David, did you get everything you needed?
Yes.
Okay. We serve to please. All right, moving along here. I've got a lot of stuff tonight. Okay, first off is council organization assignments. You've received the list. Peter, do I have to read this list too, or can we just vote on this one?
Vote up.
Okay. You have a list in your council packet, I believe?
It was emailed today.
It was emailed today. Has everybody received that? Okay, great. So now that you've all seen it and you know what your assignment, hopefully your assignments are for the year, may I have a motion to approve council organizational assignments by omnibus vote?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Trustee Kripe,
Yes.
trustee Apatow,
Yes.
trustee Lampier,
Yes.
trustee Mancini,
Yes.
trustee Swerk,
Yes.
and trustee Dearborn.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. Now I have a slew of appointments and I've been told that I have to read them all. So I will. Maybe the village clerk could help me with this.
Would you like me to read them?
I'm tired of hearing myself talk tonight.
Sure, happy to read them. The village president is proposing the following appointments. Appoint Kate Cassell McNally to a full term on the Zoning Board of Appeals. Her term will expire 5/18/2026. Appoint Jack Coladarchi to a full term as chairperson of the Landmark Preservation Commission. Term will expire 5/18/2024. Appoint Todd Vander, to a full term on the Zoning Board of Appeals. Term expiring 5/18/2026. Reappoint Liz Kunkel to another full term on the Environmental Forestry Commission. Her term will expire 5/18/2024. Reappoint Christopher Enck to another full term on the Landmark Preservation Commission. Term expiring 5/18/2024. Reappoint the following members of the Plan Commission to another full term, which will expire 5/18/2024, and includes John Golan, Bridget Orsick, and Jay Vanderland. Reappoint the following members of the Plan Development Commission to another full term expiring on 4/30/2023. Tina Dahlman, Chair, Plan Commission Representative, Matt Bradley, Vice Chair, Zoning Board Appeals Representative, Layla Danley, Plan Commission Representative, John Golan, Plan Commission Representative, Bridget Orsick, Plan Commission Representative, Lynn Hanley, Zoning Board of Appeals Representative, and Kim Handler, Zoning Board of Appeals Representative. Reappoint John Sobel to another full term on the Firefighters Pension Board, term expiring 5/1/2023, and reappoint Mark Fuller to a one-year term on the Firefighters Pension Board, term expiring 5/1/2022.
Thank you so much, Rob. I really appreciate that.
My pleasure.
All right, guys, may I have a motion to approve these appointments by omnibus vote?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Trustee Apatow.
Yeah.
Trustee Kreip.
Yes.
Trustee Swerk.
Yes.
Trustee Dearborn.
Yes.
Trustee Lampier.
Yes.
Trustee Mancini.
Yes.
That motion carries. Thank you. All right, item number 12 is closed session. There is none this evening. And item 13 is adjournment. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Trustee Dearborn.
Yes.
Trustee Kreip.
Yes.
Trustee Swerk.
Yes.
Trustee Mancini.
Yes.
Trustee Lampier.
Yes.
Trustee Apatow.
Rob?
Must be
You
muted.
gave a thumbs up.
Did I miss?
He's muted.
Do you want to adjourn Rob Apatow or not?
I thought I had Trustee Apatow. Sorry.
I should say,
Okay.
You want to keep going, Rob?
No. Let's go home.
Marty!
Okay, I
He can
think we're
talk for
finished.
himself.
Thank you.
That motion carries even if Rob votes no. So thanks, everybody. Good work tonight. I really appreciate it, and we'll see you in a few weeks.
Good
That's
night,
great.
everybody. Good night.
Thank you.